Spirit warriors, let's keep it real for a second. Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, I'm done bending for people who wouldn't even stretch for me? Have you ever asked yourself, why do I keep sacrificing my peace just to keep the room calm for others? Once upon a time, there was a chosen one who dimmed their own light just so everyone else in the room wouldn't feel insecure. They laughed when things weren't funny. They said yes when their soul screamed no. They watered down their truth just to be liked, accepted, tolerated. Until one day, they had enough. Spirit warriors, that chosen one was you. Today, your energy feels different. You're walking in rooms with your head up, heart guarded, and boundaries like steel gates. You're not apologizing for your glow, that people-pleasing spirit, dead and gone. This shift in attitude isn't just a phase, it's a holy transformation. In this video, we're going to break down why your new attitude is not only divine but dangerous, in a good way. Dangerous to fake friendships, dangerous to manipulative vibes, dangerous to the old version of you who was addicted to approval. And guess what? It looks good on you, chosen one. Real good. So stay with me to the very end of this video, because I'm going to unpack the 7 signs that you've stepped into a new era of unapologetic power and spiritual alignment. And by the time we're done, you'll realize you didn't lose people, you lost chains. As Lala Delia said, she remembered who she was and the game changed. So spirit warriors, let's walk boldly into this new attitude. Because you've served, you've sacrificed, and you've stayed silent long enough. Now it's time to walk in truth, clothed in grace and dripping in holy confidence. Let's get into it. Point 1. You set boundaries without guilt. There was a time, dear chosen one, when setting boundaries felt like the ultimate betrayal. You'd lie awake at night wondering if you hurt someone's feelings just because you needed space, rest, or peace. You thought saying no made you a bad person, cold, unkind, or worse, selfish. But now, boundaries don't feel like betrayal. They feel like freedom, glorious, soul-sparing freedom. You've awakened. You've realized that boundaries are not walls of rejection, but bridges of protection, for your peace, your purpose, and your power. In your people-pleasing days, you handed out access like candy on Halloween. Anyone who knocked got a key to your time, your energy, your love, and your spirit. You twisted yourself like a pretzel, trying to keep everyone happy. Not realizing that every time you said yes when you meant no, you were abandoning yourself. But now, you're done explaining. You don't feel the need to write an essay on why you need rest. You're not just drawing lines in the sand. You're building a wall made of divine discernment and self-love, brick by sacred brick. That wall doesn't keep love out. It keeps dysfunction out. It keeps chaos out. It keeps manipulation, guilt trips, and the sneaky agendas of users and energy vampires out. And oh, the irony. The same people who used to love the old version of you, the one with no boundaries, no resistance, no refusal, they're the ones kicking and screaming now that you've evolved. Isn't it something? They were fine when you were exhausted, anxious, and emotionally drained, as long as it meant they got what they wanted. But now that you've stepped into your worth, now that your no comes wrapped in calm confidence instead of guilt, now they're mad. Oh well, that's not your problem. Psychology backs this up. Research on boundary setting shows that individuals who confidently enforce personal limits are more respected in the long run, even by those who initially resist them. It turns out, humans instinctively respect clarity and strength, and chosen one, you are both. So stand tall behind your boundaries. Speak no with love and silence with power. Not everyone will like the new you, but the right ones will respect you for it. And the rest? Let them sit with their confusion while you soar in peace. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to be powerful. Point 2. You're okay with disappointing people. That old fear of letting people down? Gone. Vanished like mist under morning sunlight. You've finally stepped into the truth of who you are, and it's liberating. For so long you tiptoed around other people's expectations, shrinking yourself to fit into the small boxes they built for you. You wore the masks, played the roles, and tried your best to keep the peace. But the peace you were maintaining was never yours. It was theirs. You've come to understand something powerful now. You weren't born to be everyone's comfort zone. You were born to grow, to evolve, to transform. And with that realization came a freedom most people never taste. You're no longer answering every guilt trip call. You're no longer editing your light so others won't feel insecure. Why? Because their discomfort is not your emergency. That's emotional maturity 101. When you evolve, when you heal, level up, and walk differently, some people will act like you've betrayed them. But you haven't. You've simply stopped betraying yourself. Psychologically speaking, this transformation is known as differentiation of self, a term used in family systems theory. It's the ability to separate your thoughts and feelings from the expectations of others, a sign of emotional intelligence. The chosen ones develop this deeply. It's what makes them seem distant to some and magnetic to others. And yes, it shakes people. When they can't control your energy anymore, they call you cold or arrogant. But let them. Your glow-up isn't for their comfort, it's for your calling. If your growth makes them squint, let them grab shades. You don't owe anyone an apology for no longer being who they needed you to be. That version of you was a survival mechanism. This one is your rebirth. And the best part? You sleep better now. You lay your head on the pillow at night, not rehearsing apologies or replaying awkward conversations. You're not burdened by guilt or carrying someone else's emotional baggage like it's your duty. You've put it down, and in doing so, you picked up peace. Chosen one. This is what real power looks like, not loud, not boastful, but calm, grounded, and untouchable. Keep rising. The world will adjust. Point 3. You don't need to be liked to be loved. You used to hustle for likes, refreshing your feed, watching the view count, and crafting the perfect caption, hoping it would earn you a seat at someone else's table. You chased validation like it was the finish line, thinking applause was the sound of success. But now you've woken up. You don't need a chorus of claps or a thumbs up to feel valuable anymore. You've outgrown the shallow pool of popularity and stepped into the deep waters of purpose. Let's be real. Being liked is easy. Just agree with everyone, never rock the boat, smile on cue, and filter your life until it sparkles. But being aligned, that's a whole different game. Alignment is soul deep. It's about truth, integrity, purpose, and walking in sync with your higher calling, even when it's not popular. You've realized that fitting in isn't worth the spiritual shrinkage it demands. The moment you stopped seeking acceptance from everyone else, you made space to accept yourself, and more importantly, to walk boldly in what God called you to be. Chosen ones, this shift didn't happen overnight. It came through heartbreak, disappointment, and isolation. It came when the applause stopped and the silence screamed. But in that silence, you heard God louder. And what you heard was this: you are enough. Not because they say so, but because I say so. That's when everything changed. When God's approval became louder than the opinions of strangers, you stopped negotiating your worth at the discount counter of public opinion. Psychologists say that external validation can be addictive because it activates dopamine, the brain's reward center. But here's the catch: it fades fast. What doesn't fade is the inner peace that comes from knowing you're walking in your truth. Studies in positive psychology show that people who live authentically, even if they face social friction, report higher levels of life satisfaction and self-esteem. Why? Because alignment with your true self is sustainable. It's not performative, it's powerful. So now you don't hustle for attention. You attract it by being real. You're no longer a performer on someone else's stage. You're the architect of your own divine path. Your value isn't up for debate. It was set by the one who created you, and that makes it unshakable. Applause fades, but divine alignment, that lasts forever. Point 4. You walk away with peace, not pain. Before, walking away used to sting like failure. It felt like surrendering, like giving up on something you desperately wanted to work. You second-guessed yourself, wondering if you were too emotional, too sensitive, or too impatient. But now walking away feels like liberation. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not loss, it's alignment. Spirit warriors, you've grown enough to realize that begging for bare minimums is not only draining, but deeply beneath you. You've learned the hard truth. If it costs your peace, it's way too expensive. And no soul committed to growth can afford to keep paying that price. You've stopped chasing people who couldn't be bothered to care. You no longer search for closure from those who can't even spell honesty, let alone live it. Science shows that unresolved social rejection activates the same parts of the brain as physical pain. But now, you understand that healing doesn't require answers from the same hands that hurt you. You've chosen to give yourself the closure they never could. That, right there, is emotional maturity in action. And here's where the shift happens. When you leave, you no longer leave in pieces. You don't walk away empty-handed, broken, or bitter. You walk away whole. You take your peace with you, and you carry your power like a crown. The same table you once begged for crumbs from, now you get up and build your own. You've become the chef, the builder, and the guest of honor because you finally see your worth. This isn't just personal growth. This is divine alignment. That's God moving through your life, making space where there once was noise, guiding you to better rooms, and giving you discernment dressed as discomfort. Sometimes God's biggest blessings come disguised as endings. And when your spirit finally stops shrinking to fit in places it's outgrown, you realize freedom is the reward for choosing yourself. So, to every spirit warrior who once thought walking away meant failing, look at you now. You're not running, you're rising. And when you rise with grace, with clarity, and with the kind of peace that makes people wonder how you're glowing after the storm. That's not luck. That's growth. That's God. Keep walking. There's power in your stride now. Point 5. You honor your intuition loudly. You used to silence your gut to keep the peace, nodding when you wanted to walk away, smiling when something didn't sit right, biting your tongue just to avoid ruffling feathers. But not anymore. Now that inner voice you once ignored, it's your compass. It's the voice of discernment, the whisper of wisdom, and the divine signal that cuts through the chaos. You no longer wait for 10 signs, a prophetic dream, or a neon billboard blinking warning. You feel it in your bones, and that's enough. Chosen ones, something has shifted in you. Your discernment is no longer dulled by the need to be liked, accepted, or understood. Your spiritual senses are tuned in. You've developed a kind of supernatural awareness that can't be taught. It's earned through experience, through spiritual warfare, and through learning the hard way who was for you and who only appeared to be. You now see red flags even when they're dressed in designer, smiling sweetly, quoting scripture, or pretending to be light. You catch the energy before the words are spoken. You feel the tension that others miss. That's not paranoia, it's perception. That's discernment in action. And here's the powerful truth. When you stop trying to please everyone, the divine frequency gets clearer. God speaks louder. Not because he's increased his volume, but because you've turned down the noise. The approval of others used to drown out your intuition, but now you are anchored in truth, not trends. In fact, science backs this up. Research from the HeartMath Institute reveals that the human heart emits an electromagnetic field that can sense emotional and energetic cues even before the mind processes them. So yes, when your gut tells you something's off, it's because your entire system is picking up on frequencies that words can't explain. You're no longer desperate for confirmation from outside voices because you've made peace with your inner one. The more you honor your gut, the more accurate it becomes. That's divine training. That's spiritual evolution. The people you used to bend over backward to please now confuse your silence for arrogance. But it's not arrogance, it's clarity. You've simply outgrown the need to explain your spirit-led boundaries. Keep trusting your gut. That's your direct line to divine guidance. You're not crazy, you're chosen. And chosen ones don't need to see everything to know. They just feel it. Point 6. You don't explain your healing. There comes a time in every chosen one's journey when the need to explain, defend, or justify your healing disappears. You're no longer giving TED Talks about your boundaries, and honestly, that silence is powerful. You're not drawing charts, offering emotional PowerPoints, or launching into spiritual lectures explaining why you no longer return certain texts, or why your once booming social calendar now looks like a sacred scroll of solitude. You stopped explaining because you realized something profound. Your healing is personal, sacred, and not up for public consumption or debate. Gone are the days when you tolerated energy vampires, those emotionally draining people who fed off your light, drama, or endless empathy. You've stepped back from that circus, not because you're cold, but because you're finally warm toward yourself. You've taken spiritual sabbaticals, disconnected from toxic cycles, and chosen to elevate, even if it meant walking alone for a while. That's not weakness. That's strength with discernment. Studies in psychology suggest that boundary setting is one of the clearest signs of emotional maturity and self-worth, yet it's one of the hardest things for recovering people-pleasers to do. But you did it. You outgrew spaces where your brokenness used to thrive, places where your pain made others feel powerful, where your silence was mistaken for compliance, and where your giving nature was exploited. Now you find yourself in a new realm, one where peace is your prize, solitude is your sanctuary, and inner healing is the loudest, most divine flex. And here's the thing, people notice. They gossip, they speculate, they draw conclusions based on fragments of truth and loads of projection. But what they can't do, what they will never be able to do, is undo your growth. They'll talk, but you'll keep walking. Your energy speaks louder now. You don't move the same because you're not the same. And the truth is, healing looks phenomenal on you. There's a glow in your stillness, a confidence in your quiet, and a power in your refusal to perform for anyone else's comfort. That's the glow-up they didn't see coming. So let them whisper, let them wonder. While they sit around trying to decode your evolution, you're busy living in alignment. And that, chosen one, is the real story. Not the one they tell, but the one you're writing every day with your peace, your purpose, and your power. Point 7. You choose yourself. And that's not selfish. The final shift is the most powerful one of all. You realize that you are your own rescue. You stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth, to save you from your struggles, or to give you permission to live boldly. You no longer abandon yourself to make others feel secure or comfortable. That toxic tendency to shrink yourself for the sake of harmony, it's over. You finally understand that choosing yourself isn't a betrayal. It's a homecoming. It's not selfish to honor the soul that God placed inside of you. It's sacred. In fact, this shift is deeply spiritual. When you stop people-pleasing and start purpose-walking, heaven rejoices. You're not here to audition for love, approval, or a seat at anyone else's table. You're here to align with your divine assignment. Psychologists call this self-actualization, the highest level in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where your potential is fully realized and lived out. But long before science gave it a name, God was already calling you into alignment with His purpose. This alignment feels like peace. Not the peace that comes from everyone liking you, but the peace that comes from finally liking yourself. You're no longer performing for love. You are love in motion. That's why this shift is so liberating. It breaks chains. Chains of approval addiction, perfectionism, and emotional abandonment. And here's the beauty of it. When you choose yourself, when you protect your energy and walk in your calling, you become a light. Not a spotlight seeking attention, but a lighthouse guiding others who forgot their own power. So, Spirit Warrior, keep choosing you. Keep aligning, because every time you say yes to your own soul, you echo heaven's celebration. You're not just surviving anymore. You're soaring, divinely and unapologetically. Listen, chosen ones. This new attitude you're rocking, it's not ego, it's elevation. It's not pride, it's protection. You've done the time in the shadows, and now your spirit is walking in sunshine. You no longer need to shrink for rooms that can't handle your fullness. You are no longer begging to be understood. You are no longer dimming your light to keep others comfortable. You're walking proof that saying no is sometimes the most holy thing you can do. So, Spirit Warriors, wear that new attitude like armor. Let your no be your sword and your peace be your shield. Because from now on, you don't owe the world a performance. You owe God your obedience. And baby, that looks good on you. Stay woke, stay divine, stay chosen.